If South Africans really wanted the land, the first thing we need to understand is the reality of the legislation that exists today. On paper, South Africa has frameworks intended to redistribute the land, but the laws themselves are slow moving, they're complicated, and riddled with loopholes that benefit those already in positions of power. The processes are heavily bureaucratic, requiring multiple approvals and assessments, and even forms of documentation that most communities struggling for access cannot realistically navigate. At the same time, large landowners and corporations are often the ones with the most to lose, which naturally gives them a stake in ensuring that reform is slowed or diluted. This isn't just a question of fairness, right? It's about the practical mechanics of who controls resources and how decisions get made in government. The slow pace of legislative reform, combined with the complexity of land claims, creates an environment where the status quo is maintained and ordinary citizens remain largely excluded from ownership, even when the law is supposed to work in their favor. So, understanding this gap between legislation and lived reality is the first step in seeing why reform has stalled. But the truth is that ordinary South Africans do have power, even if it doesn't always feel like it. Petitions, public hearings, and sustained engagement with local government aren't just symbolic things. They can directly influence policy decisions if organized strategically. Citizens can track who sits on relevant committees, they can attend council meetings, and demand accountability from the politicians who are supposed to implement these laws. The challenge isn't only the legal framework itself, it is how people choose to interact with it. When communities are informed and persistent and united in their advocacy, the momentum shifts and the barriers to reform become more navigable. If the goal is real land access rather than rhetorical debate, the focus has to be on understanding the mechanics of legislation. It has to be identifying who benefits from the delays and engaging in the processes that can move change forward. Reform is not automatic, but it's achievable when ordinary citizens recognize and act on the levers of influence that already exist.